The Pitt Season 2 just recently concluded, and I have thoughts. I was lucky enough to start my first watch a little bit before Season 2 wrapped up, so for the most part, I got to binge it. I think it's important that I preface that I don't really watch medical shows often, so my critiques might come off as ignorant to those who do have experience with medical shows. Literally, my only other experience with it is House, and I literally only watched that because of the rap.
My name is House. Knock on my door.
This season left me feeling really disappointed, which sucks, because I really went on a journey with Season 1 and came around to love it. I won't entirely write off the season. It did have some positives, but not that many big ones. I have a lot to critique about Season 2, and this will probably come off as mostly just a hate rant because I feel so let down, but I simply cannot contain myself and just have to fucking talk about this dumpster fire. Oh, fuck. There I go hating right away. I'll try my best not to rip off my skin and just do my best to highlight the positives of the season first. Season 2 brought us a few new additions to the cast. The one who outshined the rest was Baran Al-Hashimi. Out of all of the additions, I think they handled her well, and the acting was great. She comes in at the start of the season to act as Robby's replacement during a sabbatical. It's clear that she knows what she's doing, and she actually has some empathy, unlike Robby. I thought they handled the build-up of her character pretty well. From her starting out as an obstacle and an annoyance, and then slowly becoming way more enjoyable to watch than Robby, because she's not an arsehole. There was a lot of mystery around her this season, as it was clear that something was up. Turns out, she suffers from a type of seizure, which was actually a pretty educational moment for me, as I wasn't aware that there was more than one type. Annoyingly, however, they don't really go anywhere with it, at least not this season. Bringing it up at the end of the penultimate episode and basically making it almost meaningless in the finale felt like a huge insult to what they had been building up for her. She does have that breakdown in the car, but it just doesn't feel like enough. Hopefully they expand upon this in Season 3, but given my gripes with Season 2, I wouldn't be shocked if they just moved on. One of the Pitt's strongest assets is its patience, and I really appreciate the feeling of care that Season 2 had toward them. The main patients that come to mind are Roxy, Alana, and Digby. Roxy is a mother who comes in with an injury following a seizure. She's also been battling lung cancer for the past 7 years. An immediate show of care is when the night charge nurse comes in and reveals herself to be Roxy's death doula, someone in place to make the transition into death easier. There's a moment I like when Roxy's parents arrive. They offer to bring her some ice cream, but check in with Javadi first to see if that's okay, to which she simply responds,
"She can have anything she wants."
It's such a simple line, but it just feels so respectful, and she's just trying to allow this woman some joy in her last days. I think the way they used Roxy's relationships was incredibly effective. Her overworked husband just wanted to see her home and insists on trying to get her out of there, but the doctors encourage him that supporting her and respecting her wishes is the greatest thing he can do for her. It just all feels so caring. They're trying to ensure she passes in the most comfortable way she can in a way that she wants. Everyone takes on the death doula role in some sense. Roxy's oldest son isn't prepared to say goodbye to her. He refuses to enter the room, but McKay assures him that he'll regret it forever if he doesn't. As a mother, she most likely was thinking of her son in that moment. She'd want to be able to say goodbye to him just as much as Roxy wants to say goodbye to her sons. She pulls off her experience to give her the best care possible. Then there's Alana. She's a sexual assault victim who's treated by Dana and Emma. This is probably my favorite instance of care in the show. Everything is very by the book while still treating her like a human, making sure she's comfortable at all times and telling her things to help her down the line.
This will not define you, okay?
As well as encouraging her to keep in mind that she should have the option to press charges later down the line should she change her mind. There's not a whole lot to say about this plotline as it's really only featured for a couple episodes, but the execution was done really well and it just felt really meaningful to Season 2 as a whole. I really like the way that Dana puts it after Emma expressed how amazing she was in handling the situation.
We do what we can to provide the best care to traumatized people in their darkest days.
Finally, there's Digby. They don't really spend a lot of time with him, but he's used very effectively. Emma gets assaulted by a patient, marking a pretty shitty first day that may discourage her to return to the ER completely. However, Dana uses Digby, a character who's proven to be nice and mild-mannered, to show Emma that despite all the bad experiences, there are tons of good ones and good people. They treat him with respect, shave his beard, cut his hair, and listen to the stories of his daughter, making for quite a nice scene. Then, the finale does something weird with his character. For some unknown reason, he somehow steals Whittaker's badge as well as this random dummy that appeared a couple episodes throughout the season. The scene just feels like some dumb gag that completely destroys what the character had been presented as. The writers suddenly make Digby out to be mentally ill in some way when that hadn't really been present in any other scene. Season 2 spends a little bit of time highlighting the importance of nurses and mostly how they're affected by things happening in the ER. Something that wasn't really highlighted that well in Season 1. Some of my friends with healthcare experience have expressed to me how meaningful it was to see this section of healthcare highlighted, so I felt it was right to talk about. I really enjoy the nurses for what little screen time they have. It's always so amusing when Perla and Princess just gossip to each other. Most of the highlighting of the nurses comes after the death of Louis. We get to watch how this takes an effect on the team. The news sort of spreads around with everyone being fairly upset. Perla is hit the hardest though, as she was in the room when he passed. This becomes a great way to show how much care the staff have for each other as we watch Dana relieve Perla of the duty to clean up his body after seeing her visibly shaken by his death. They do a good job to highlight the importance of the nurses by dropping little things and allowing them to have their moments. For instance, they give Donnie the opportunity to stitch up this guy's leg, while also teaching the med students a thing or two. It's nice to see someone other than a doctor passing on some medical knowledge. I have a lot to critique when it comes to Season 2, and this was basically the whole reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place. If you like The Pitt Season 2, then this segment probably isn't for you. I'm gonna be pretty harsh on it, but I also want to make it clear that it's literally so fine for you to have enjoyed the season. This isn't me coming for anyone who enjoyed it because, as we all know by now, media can be subjective, and it's important to be respectful of differing views. I felt the urge to get this one out of the way quickly. Product placement has been around for decades, and for the most part, I really couldn't care less about a piece of media doing it, as long as it works in a way that isn't particularly distracting. But, The Pitt does it in a really glaringly obvious, shitty way that completely took me out of the experience. For some reason, right in the middle of 214, we just have this random ass scene of Whittaker ordering this old lady a fucking lift. Somehow she also doesn't understand what a lift is. From my understanding, the term giving someone a lift is not a particularly unknown expression, even in the US. It just feels like an excuse for the writers to shove in this glaringly obvious dumb fucking ad read. They literally also don't use this in any meaningful way, aside from a stupid, haha, all people are racist, for the gang to chuckle to themselves at as Whittaker gets charged $250. The second instance comes in the following episode.
Want half a monster?
Fuck off! Jesus Christ, look at the way he's holding that can too. Who holds a can like that? If you look up people holding cans, they're holding it in basically the normal way in every sense. It's so obvious that they're just trying to keep the logo visible so the viewers can drool at the big brand name in their favorite show. They move on pretty quickly from this one, which is fine, but it's the most glaringly obvious product placement. So, this is gonna sound like a huge nitpick to a lot of people, but one of the things that stood out to me in this season is just how weirdly sexualized it is compared to Season 1. I don't really have a problem with sexualized media as long as it's status quo from the start. They have a few scenes of flirtation between characters in Season 1, but Season 2 does it so much, and in ways that quite literally shouldn't happen. McKay is all horny this season and eventually gives into this patient wanting to take her out by being like, haha, meet me here. Which, by the way, is like a huge ethical violation. Like, hello? what are we doing here? They do it so often too. It's not just McKay, Mel gets flirted with too. Why? Neither of these add anything to the plot, and the McKay thing somewhat damages the realism of the show. I'm not going to say that a patient and doctor haven't gotten together, because they probably have. Crazy shit like that happens all the time. But they're so weirdly casual about a pretty big issue. They try to make it out as some weird cutesy moment between the pair where we should all be giggling, clapping, and ignoring the issues. From my understanding, this is massively inappropriate behavior, which medical practitioners are warned to steer clear of. But hey man, I guess the show doesn't give a fuck anymore because McKay is horny this season. I know I'm going on about it a lot, but it's also the fact that just no one really questions it, which pisses me off. Like, this is not okay. Another big issue that comes under this is the needless relationships this season. Robbie has been hooking up with the insurance lady Noelle. It is the most random pairing ever. The writers don't use this dynamic in any meaningful way. They just have a couple scenes together where people suspect they're fucking, and that's it. It just doubles down on my frustrations with the weird sexualization of this show. They could have used this in some way to propel Robbie's character, but they don't. Like, not at all. It just exists, and that's it. The counter to this dynamic is Garcia and Santos, which is actually used in a somewhat meaningful way compared to the Robbie Noelle thing. It was nice to see it be used to propel the drama, with it partially fueling Santos' frustrations over the course of the season. So, in this case, it's not one I'd write off as entirely meaningless. Also, to clarify, I'm not opposed to relationships in TV. In fact, I find those dynamics to be extremely compelling when used correctly. A prime example of this is Walter and Skylar White from Breaking Bad. The Pitt just doesn't really use these dynamics to propel drama much, hence my complaint. Season 2 throws 4 new additions our way. I already mentioned my love for Al-Hashimi, but the rest are, well, they're not great. The 3 others are Nurse Emma and med students Joy and Ogilvy. Emma was actually an addition that I could somewhat appreciate, but she was an incredibly one-dimensional character. To be clear, I liked her, but I wasn't invested in her character whatsoever. Emma is nice. That's basically all she's got going on this season. She has a couple moments of feeling down, but they don't really use it in any way that matters. She literally gets assaulted, and it's all about Dana instead. Like, what? Dana's great, and I do like how they use that for her character, but what Emma went through was entirely unimportant to her character, and then she just goes on home. I hope they give this character some more depth in season 3, because man, I cannot do another season of just this. Joy was probably my least favorite of the new additions. They did not try with this character whatsoever. Once again, she felt pretty one-dimensional. Her whole thing was just being done with everything, and then she goes home early without having done anything meaningful in the story, aside from having a photographic memory. Like, yeah, that's cool, but how the fuck is that going to be used in any way in future seasons? Furthermore, it actually lessened a potential impact on the story. Midway through the season, systems go down and they are fucked without the patient information. But oh boy, Joy just swoops in and everything is fine. Leaving this out actually could have propelled the drama further, as the characters would have been far more stressed out, making for great tension building toward the second half of the season. Finally, there's Ogilvy. It's clear they actually tried to do something with this character, but it still wasn't great. He's basically a conflicting mix of Santos and Whitaker from season 1. He's overeager, and he's annoying. They tried to have this weird competition between him and Javadi, which just did not work, because they basically dropped it so Ogilvy could dip upstairs with a patient. This is when the Whitaker side comes out. He starts breaking down over having lost his first patient, just like Whitaker did in season 1. Like, it works, and actually makes for a decent scene, but we've done this before. This isn't anything new. Alright, this is the big one. I've had a lot of discussions with some of my friends about this. Season 2 becomes the Dr. Robby Show. There is so much Noah Wiley this season. Like, holy fuck. Yes, he is the main character of the show. so it's only natural that he has more screen time than everyone else, but they handled it in such a terrible way compared to season 1. Robbie's arc in the first season was actually pretty good, and his breakdown in those last few episodes was fantastic. And it didn't get in the way of anything. The balance of arcs in the first season was executed perfectly. They built up tension in a brilliant way by having pretty much everyone go through something during the season, which supported the narrative to have tension fire off in all kinds of ways in those last few episodes. Season 2 completely defies this established nature of the show and instead sidelines characters in order to spend more time building Robbie up. I mean, seriously. So many characters from season 1 have almost nothing going on because it's the Mr. Pitt show now. I was so upset by the way they handled McKay this season. She was easily one of my favorites in season 1. She was shown to be caring and empathetic, but also knew when to assert herself to people, showing she's not someone to be fucked with while also going through a great journey. Remember the whole ankle monitor thing? Well, the show doesn't. It's brought up maybe twice, but is almost entirely irrelevant this season. Yeah, she got it off, but why did she have it in the first place? They hinted that it has something to do with her son's stepmom, but never outright said what. This could have been carried forward into season 2 to propel her character, but nope, she's dumbed down to just empathetic and caring. Oh, and also horny for some reason. There was a moment where a little light shined through the clouds, a chance for McKay to have something meaningful. She begins talking to Roxy about death, and then they fucking cut? What? I was so pissed when they did that. I get there's only so much time in an episode of television, but fuck right off. We don't need all these Robbie scenes. So many people take a hit just so Noah Wyle can have more potential for Emmy nominations. Remember Kiara? This season she gets replaced by a new person, Dylan. They take on the same role as Kiara, just another social worker helping solve problems, but they are barely in the show. Dylan is literally only in 3 episodes this season, which feels like a huge slap in the face given the importance they put on social workers in season 1. I mean, for fuck's sake, Kiara was in 10 episodes last season. What the fuck changed? So far, I've spoken about characters being less important this season than their season 1 appearances, so I guess I should talk about the characters who were made more important this season. Mohan is the one that comes to mind. They build up her character, and we watch as she grows more and more frustrated over the course of the season, eventually having a panic attack, causing Dr. Dickhead to scream at her, treating her like a little baby. The aftermath of this is handled hilariously bad. They barely use her after this, and then they have Mohan apologize to him! Like, what the fuck? This isn't the conclusion she deserves, and by the way, this is her conclusion. This is her last scene with dialogue in the entire show. She's not coming back in season 3. So we just wasted our time watching Mohan go through an extremely stressful day with absolutely no conclusion. This is not how you send off a character. Now, some people might argue that things don't neatly wrap up like that in real life, but that's bullshit. This is a TV show. I don't care how realistic it wants to be. That is a straight up excuse to make up for lazy writing. The amount of focus on Robbie this season pissed me off so much. He was a conflicting character in season 1, sure, but it worked because he had the lighter moments and he wasn't a massive dickhead to his people every fucking spare second he got. Season 2 stops making him conflicting in any sense. He just becomes an insufferable arsehole who resorts to yelling at his coworkers almost entirely unprovoked. It's also very strange just how many screaming matches he gets in with women this season. Langdon, a guy who betrayed his trust, a guy who you'd expect Robbie to yell at, gets almost nothing from him. Just an inconclusive conversation on the roof. The way he treats his female co-workers was ridiculous, yet barely anyone chimed up about it. They just allowed him to get away with it. Anyway, fuck Rabinovich, man. What a terrible mishandling of a once great character. Another major gripe I have with this season is just how fucking repetitive it is. Yes, it's a medical drama all in one place, so some repetition is to be expected. But they even make the stories repetitive. Like, why did I have to watch Santos constantly get interrupted while charting? Once is enough, but nah, we gotta do it all the fucking time because we wanna be realistic. Oh boy, I'm hating so fucking hard. But seriously, this is almost Santos's entire arc across the season. Just her getting frustrated over the interruptions of her charting or people being on her back about her charting. Charting, 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 stop! I have to confess, I don't really like Santos. I'm not her biggest fan, but I can absolutely sympathize with the things she's gone through. I actually think this character has a lot of potential for growth, yet the writers are holding her back. Like, yeah, I don't expect her to suddenly let go of her walls up demeanor, because it's absolutely a survival tactic to prevent what happened to her ever happening again. We do kinda see her walls come down with Whitaker, but for the most part, it goes unresolved. Let's talk about Mel as well. Her entire arc this season surrounds her deposition. It's as bad as Santos's charting, but somehow fucking worse. She's stressed out about it, but it feels like there's almost no stakes involved because the characters reassure her that she's a great doctor, nothing will happen, etc. So I don't really feel any need to care about this plot. It also doesn't really help that we don't even get to see the fucking thing, despite them bringing it up all the time. Mel just dips for a bit and then comes back and, oh, haha, the deposition went terrible. Laugh, audience, laugh. Yeah, they do use this to have her explode at Becca after learning she's been having sex, which, by the way, is another weird sexualization of season 2. Like, why are we doing this? But it ultimately feels inconclusive once again because Becca just leaves? Oh, and let's not forget the finale. We get the eye-rolling reveal that Mel has to go through another deposition. I swear to fucking God, if I ever hear the word deposition in season 3, my eyes have left my skull. Robby and Dana end up having the same argument a couple times, and it's boring. It's like they saw the success of season 1 and said, let's do that again, so everything has to become a screaming match now. Robby gets mad at Dana for hitting some guy for assaulting Emma, Dana calls out Robby for being suicidal, they yell, Dana calls him out for refusing to leave. This happens multiple times across 2 episodes. 3 separate instances that I can recall of the two making basically the exact same remarks to each other. I'm fucking tired, man. Anyone else? Something I kept picking up on during this season was the weird, like, TikTok Gen Z appealing dialogue. The characters presented definitely are likely to say this, but it's just the fact that they weren't speaking this way in season 1 that really throws me off and just takes me out of the experience. For the most part, it feels like the writers doing the thing where they try to relate to their youth or whatever the fuck, but it's just stupid to me. They say shit like,
I didn't peg you for an astrology girly.
Sleep, Maxine, really?
and the worst offender,
You good at me?
what the fuck does that even mean? That is not the context for that word, like, at all. Anyways, it's not just the weird Gen Z dialogue, there's also just generally strange dialogue throughout the season. Whitaker randomly goes in on Langdon, which for one is completely out of nowhere, and 2, he starts spouting this bullshit obscure reference. Like, what? During my first watch, I actually had to go back and rewatch the scene just to understand what exactly the point was there. This also never gets brought up again. It's just sorta over. One thing that really stuck out to me across this season was the meaninglessness of death. Season 1 had tons of standout emotional moments, watching characters die, parents sobbing, and the cast going through it. Not to mention how many times they lingered on it after the fact. They had an emotional send-off for the brain-dead kid with the crew wanting to attend his funeral. Where the fuck was any of that in season 2? Yes, there are moments where characters die and it's sad, but for all of 5 seconds. Roxy dies and we move on immediately. It doesn't affect McKay in really any way, nor is it shown to affect Javadi. It just happens, and we're supposed to move on. May I remind you, Roxy was featured in 7 episodes across the season. That is more than most patients, and they barely even acknowledge her after it happens. Louis, I can forgive a bit more because they do actually give him a send-off with everyone crowding in the room to talk to him, but is that really it? There is almost no mention of Louis after this. He's not just some regular run-of-the-mill patient either. He's someone they all knew for many years. Yet they just move on like it never even fucking happened after their hour of grief. I'm gonna come right out and say it. The finale was not great. I'm not gonna write it off as like completely bad. There were actually some moments that I appreciated, but the final thing as a whole was not my favorite. I know the shift is winding down and I shouldn't really expect some crazy finale like other shows manage to deliver, but like, it can still at least try to be good. This truly was the finale for the Dr. Robby Show. He takes up so much screen time, which just sacrifices anyone's ability to have a meaningful fucking conclusion. I mean, seriously, Samira could have had a good send-off, but instead, she has to stand there, listen to Robbie vent his shit, and then she has to apologize. Then she's gone. Never to return, other than to stare up at some fireworks with a big fucking smile plastered on her face. Seriously? Why is she so happy? This day was shit. Like, fuck off. This was such an empty conclusion to her character. The majority of this episode is either Robbie looking for Al-Hashimi or characters telling him he's fucked up, he needs help, be safe, etc. This is all it is. Yeah, the scenes themselves can be meaningful, but it's the same shit again and again. Change it up. The conversation with Abbott was enough. Give everyone else a meaningful conclusion too, instead of spending so much time with Robbie roaming around to have another conversation. It's even more of an insult when the spare moments are taken up by pointless endeavors instead of character moments. For some reason, Langdon heads up to look for some lady who lost her leg, a lady who I forgot about. Also, the front desk lady casually gives out patient information to this random guy. Doesn't matter if he says he's a doctor, he didn't prove it. What happened to realism, guys? We also waste time with this wild birth pregnant lady. Like, what? We've spent the entire season doing bullshit like this. Give it a rest for once and focus on sending off your characters. This was also just an incredibly inconclusive finale. There's so much stuff still hanging around that's gone unresolved. Yeah, I spoke about the whole things don't wrap up in a day thing, but still, I won't allow that to excuse the writers for just being lazy. Langdon finally has his conversation with Robbie, but it's not even about them. It's about Robbie again. Langdon tells him that he needs help instead of talking about their shit. Like, he does mention something briefly, but the majority of their conversation is about Robbie. Robbie. I don't give a fuck about Robbie. I'm sorry, but they made him an unlikable arsehole this season. He has like a couple moments this episode where he's nice to Samira and Javadi, but that doesn't make up for shit. It just feels manipulative from the writers. They want me to cheer for this guy because he finally supports them. Too little, too late, man. He didn't even apologize to Samira anyways! And then they wrap off the season with Robbie venting his shit to baby Jane Doe. Like, come on. This is the most boring way to end off a season. I saw it coming while watching the episode and was just praying that they'd end it on a better note. But I guess the baby was the solution to all his problems. Not his conversations with Abbott, Dana, or even Langdon. Like, what? What was the point in all that then? I swear, if Robbie adopts that kid, I'm gonna be so pissed. It's the most cliche bullshit ever. A child doesn't magically solve all your problems. So, I've gotten most of the big stuff out of the way that I wanted to talk about. The remaining things are basically just topics too small to be worthy of their own segments, and the ones that didn't exactly fit into the other stuff. I took issue with the dropped plot lines that either started this season or were forgotten from last season. One big one was the whole Crash nickname conundrum from season 1. Santos gives Javadi a mocking nickname because she passed out during an operation. Javadi did not appreciate this. In fact, she told Santos to stop and basically just got hit with, well, sorry you have feelings. In season 2, we come to learn that Javadi just accepted the nickname. It's incredibly frustrating to me. It prevents Santos from having any room to grow, and it also sends a bad message. This show loves to send messages to the audience, yet they let this one slide? Like, what? Now, I know I'm making a bigger deal out of it than it actually is, but come on. Javadi just gives into a bully and now they're suddenly buds? Like, huh? There was also that whole Gen AI plotline with Al-Hashimi, which was actually insufferable.
Generative AI is 98% accurate at present.
Stop! Like, alright, yeah, from what I hear, this is actually an issue in healthcare, but it's just the fact that they completely forget about it after the systems go down. Like, why did you bring it up if you're not gonna give it a resolution? This leads me into another critique. The systems going down had almost zero impact on the season. It stressed them out, sure, and people made mistakes, but it really wasn't that big of a deal and didn't leave its mark. Speaking of things that didn't leave their mark, what was up with the cliffhangers this season? There were so many endings that seemed way bigger than they actually appeared to be in the following episodes. The biggest offender is episode 9's cliffhanger. Donnie catches news of a water slide collapsing, which seems like a pretty big deal as the intense music drones in, but nah! It's 2 patients. I was picturing a small-scale pit fest type deal, but nah, silly me, I guess. The last couple things to touch on is the complete isolation of this season. Chairs and triage were almost entirely unused compared to season 1, which was a real shame. Watching people grow frustrated in chairs during season 1 was a great way to build tension with it leading up to the whole Doug Driscoll thing, but they kinda just didn't bother with any of that this season. There's also the comedy this season. Maybe I'm just miserable, but the pit is almost never funny. I had a few laughs with Mel during season 1, but that was about it. It was the weakest aspect of season 1 for me, and thankfully they didn't include it all that much and leaned more towards the drama in those later episodes. But season 2 said nope and decided to make everything a fucking comedy special. Oh, laugh audience, this old woman just shat on Ogilvy. I could not give a fuck. Fears for the future. Alright. We're officially done with the negatives. I was pretty nitpicky and maybe overcritical with the season. To put it truthfully, I'm scared. Scared of the pit's future. I don't want to witness another great show take such a nosedive. We've all seen that so recently. Just mere months ago, we all witnessed one of the biggest turnarounds in recent memory. I'm of course referring to Stranger Things. The Pitt and Stranger Things are 2 very different shows, but I can't deny that one hasn't affected my view on the other. Stranger Things taught me to look out for the warning signs, and The Pitt Season 2 has those cracks in them already. Bloated cast, sideline characters, I don't want to see it happen again. I really hope they can turn this ship around and set us on course for a good 3rd season. I think one of the things that concerns me is the rate in which they just want to pump out seasons. I think they jumped the gun on season 2 and tried to release it way too early, while it was still underbaked. I realize I'm probably the one guy actually complaining that something didn't take years to release for once, but there's also the concept of quality over quantity. With the nature of the pit, it is possible to produce a season quickly given the fact that they only have one filming location, but I'd rather they actually take their time to produce something good instead of something mediocre. We deserve better. This was a way longer rant than I intended it to be, but I think I got out everything I wanted to say. I hope to never feel like making a video on The Pitt again, because season 3 will prove me wrong and I will have nothing more to say on that show. Anyways, sorry for the rant and all the cursing. Thank you for your time, and thank you for watching. Bye. Pitt. More like shit!